Hi class, today's video is going to be on solving inequalities. Now the biggest thing to keep in mind when solving inequalities is that you treat it no different than if it was a regular equality with an equal sign, except for the fact that if we need to multiply or divide both sides by a negative, then we have to flip the sign. So let's look at this problem. Negative 3w minus 6 is greater than 9. Well, we need to get w by itself, so we're going to add 6 to both sides. Now that gives us 9 plus 6 is going to give us 15. We still have greater than or equal to. The 6's go away, leaving us with negative 3w is greater than 15. Now this is where we have to pay attention to dividing or multiplying by a negative, because in order to clear out the negative 3, we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Now on the left-hand side, the negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, so we're left with just a w. However, we just divided by a negative, so it's time to flip the sign. We had a greater than sign, now it becomes less than. And 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. Now, we would want to put this answer in interval notation. So since w is everything that is less than negative 5, that means our answer is going to be negative infinity up to negative 5. And since it's less than, it gets a parenthesis. Now let's take a look at 3p minus 1 divided by negative 2 is greater than 5. Now remember, I said if you multiply or divide by negative, you have to switch the sign. Well, this is an example of one where we multiply by a negative. So in order to clear out the divided by negative 2, we're going to multiply both sides by negative 2. And so we're going to multiply this side by negative 2. That allows us to cancel these two negative 2's, leaving us with just 3p minus 1. And on the right-hand side, we're going to have negative 10. However, since we just multiplied by a negative, we need to switch the sign to less than. Now we're still trying to get p by itself, so we're going to add 1 to both sides, leaving us with 3p on the left, a less than, and negative 10 plus 1 is negative 9. Lastly, we're going to divide both sides by 3, giving us that p is less than negative 3. Now to put this in interval notation, we are saying that p is less than negative 3, which means we're looking at p being everything up to negative 3, which means negative infinity to negative 3, and since negative 3 is not included, we put a parenthesis. Let's look at one more problem, and this one is going to be 4 is greater than 2x plus 8 over negative 2 is greater than or equal to negative 5. Now on this problem, we have two different inequalities, and so there are 3 pieces to our problem. Now just like I would, whatever I do to one side, do to the other, the same idea applies, and whatever I do to one piece, I must do to all 3 pieces. We still have the same goal of getting the variable by itself. In this case, that's x. So the first thing we're going to want to do, if we're looking at just the middle, is we want to get rid of that negative 2. Well, since the entire middle is divided by negative 2, in order to basically undo that, we need to multiply both sides by negative 2. I mean, all 3 pieces by negative 2. So that's going to allow us to cancel the negative 2's from the middle. We're going to have negative 2 times 4 on the left, giving us negative 8. And we just multiplied by a negative, which means we need to flip the sign. In the middle, we are left with 2x plus 8. And again, we must flip the sign to be less than or equal. And then negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Now we're still trying to get x by itself, so we're looking at the middle again. And in order to do that, we're going to need to subtract 8, that's an 8, from both sides. Oh, I mean all three pieces. I keep doing that. And when we do that, on the left-hand side, the left piece, we have negative 8 minus 8, giving us negative 16, is less than 2x less than or equal to 2. Now the last piece of this problem is to divide all three pieces by 2. And this is positive 2, so we don't need to switch the sign. And the left piece gets negative 16 divided by 2, which is negative 8. Less than x is less than or equal to 1. Now we want to put this in interval notation. So the best way to interpret this is you can say negative 8 is less than x is less than or equal to 1, but instead I'm going to think of this as x is between negative 8 and 1. And so on the left part of my interval, I'm going to have negative 8. And then I know it goes all the way up to 1. But since it was less than or equal to 1, it includes the 1, giving me a bracket on the right.